Hey there, Chuck. Happy Cinco de Mayo and Taco Tuesday.
Trump Taco Tuesday.
Oh God, is there a Trump taco?
Oh, he
A
tacos
bunch of orange sauce surrounding a bunch of
Trump
cheap meat.
Trump Taco real good. So Jim, oh my God, Jim, we talk about this and you and I shake our heads ruefully every week about all the stuff that's going on. I took notes. I know you and I've been taking notes lately because we want to try to keep this on a, not be you, it's you and me. So we're going to do this regardless, but not do too much of that. I have got 3/4 of a page of notes and I left, like I was really debating with myself today before we got on about what I should leave off and what I should put on. There's so much. I mean, everything from Trump's temper tantrum because the German chancellor said that he wasn't the greatest person on the planet, and now we're going to pull troops out of Germany, which by the way benefits us, not Germany. He's so stupid he doesn't realize that by having those German bases, that's for logistics to get around Europe. But yeah, you get to do that. I don't know if you saw, he has now soured on the Road to Housing Act. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I was not. I read about it. So the Road to Housing Act basically says that all single, and I'm going to get being very general, there's more to it than this. Basically, all single family rentals must be sold after 7 years as single family homes. So if you've got multiple homes and you're using a rental, you have to sell it, which would then put, and I know what you're going to say because I thought the same thing. I'm like, well, but here's my thing: if you bought, and you'd be grandfathered in, by the way. Well, yeah, but not to mention that, I mean, you'd be grandfathered in. So if you already had a house, if this were passed, it would only be on new purchases. And it's like anything else in the world. If I buy a rental knowing I can only rent it for 7 years before I can sell it, I do it or I don't do it. I'm not harming.
Right.
I'm not harming anyone. It's not retroactive.
You also change your approach to how you look at that property, right? You may not put a lot of money into it. You may keep it a little simpler if you do. You have to talk about it, right?
Well, right. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me back up. Not for just anybody. It's for these major corporations. I'm sorry. It's like Blackstone and all that. They can't own like
That's right. That's
thousand
going to be a real big problem with the housing.
houses and jack the rent up, but after 7 years, they've got to sell it. So, now he's soured on that. And the GOP's like, time out. You were fighting for this. This looks good. We can do this. And he's like, nah, I'm not interested anymore.
We lost whatever perk he was getting.
Thank you. Or somebody looked at him funny and he was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I think the biggest thing that happened this week is you saw that the Supreme Court completely gutted the Voting Rights Act.
Yeah.
And now southern states have paused, and a couple of the states, I think it was Tennessee and Alabama, were like, was it Alabama? We're literally set to start voting like Friday. And they're like, come out, we're going to completely redo our map. So brown people, you're fucked. You're out of luck again.
Great part of it was Alioto's statement about how much progress had been made in the South over integration and voting. I'm like, and then you turned around and gutted everything that helped that progress happen,
Well, the crazy thing is, I was reading the other day that the farming industry not only taking a huge hit because Trump outsourced all the soybeans to China. That's America first. Diesel fuel prices are through the roof, which is killing farmers. Can't get, 20 or 30% of all fertilizer comes through the Strait of Hormuz, so they can't get fertilizer. And yeah, I mean, he's raping farmers. The crazy thing is, I think I read like 80+% of farmers in the Midwest voted for Trump.
Realistically, what's happening is there's a lot of folks that finally feeling what their vote meant. And you can't say you didn't know.
Well, you're right.
You also cannot deny you voted for it. You voted for it, you did. And you brought this on yourself too.
Yeah. I'm a policy geek. I'm a statistics geek when it comes to politics. Nothing else. I don't worry about statistics and anything else politics. I don't know what that says about me, but it's true. I saw something the other day that gave me hope and made me smile. And that is that Trump has cratered with Republican-leaning independents down from 83% to 53%. It's a 30-point swing. That's huge. That's massive. And you and I've talked about this before. In modern politics, the left doesn't matter, the right doesn't matter, independents matter.
And what's interesting is a couple things that I heard this week. First of all, there's a blue wave going on in a couple of states, like Texas and Florida. It's going to be very interesting to watch because we have two key states, one being the president's own home. In fact, the president's own county has gone blue.
Jim,
and
Ohio's in play, man.
Yeah. And Texas is getting very blue.
I know.
And, I think part of that is that's the COVID migration changed people. A lot of people went places they weren't living before, so you brought different views in, right? That's where some of that changed. But I also think that We finally are having people wake up to what's going on. They see that Trump has really made nothing better for them. You're not in a better place than you were 2 or 4 or 6 years ago.
God, no.
And so, and it's constantly coming out. Some new shit deal he's worked out for himself. You know, there's currency, there's cryptocurrency, there's
They now believe that he has tripled his income in the last, 16, 17 months he's been president.
money he's making off the cryptocurrency deal he did with the UAE, one of the bad sheiks, is something like $81 billion a year.
Right. Right. Well, and I hate to be this simplistic about it, but the American people have, it's true. The American people have a really short attention span and a really short memory. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. You can't fuck with people's livelihoods. Salaries are not going up in relation to food.
Haven't gone up since the World War II to
Well,
actually match inflation.
agreed, but you've got the biggest financial wealth disparity in this country. People are calling this the second Gilded Age. So you got Bezos, who's worth, $269 billion, I think. He spent $50 million on like his wedding, like spent a week in his wedding and all of this. And the Met Gala last night, he blew all sorts of crazy money and it was god awful and horrible. And he's kissed Trump's ass and spent 40 odd million on the Melania documentary, which is, I mean, barely an afterthought anymore. Let's be realistic. It was hot for 5 seconds and now it's gone. You got all these people, and then you've got I read that more and more Americans, and I'm not talking about people who make $20,000 a year. I'm talking about average Americans are putting gas and food and healthcare on fucking credit cards. Because week to week, and I don't care how hardcore of a Trumpy you are. I don't care how in the cult you are. I drive a Toyota Highlander, and I filled up the other day, and it was like $68. And I don't care who you are or how much money you make. That hurts.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're a billionaire, you don't give a damn because somebody's filling it up for you. But you probably make $68.
Okay, so you're G5.
Well, I'll say if you're Jeff Bezos, you probably make $68 a second, so it really doesn't matter anyway.
If your G5 is more expensive to fly to the next country you want to go to.
If you can get the fuel. So yeah, that kind of stuff. And if you're a farmer in the Midwest and you can't afford, you can't get or afford fertilizer, you can't afford fuel. Trump is off, like I said, soybean farmers, Trump fucked you on that. And then doing what Republicans always do. And if you go back and look, and anybody who, please blow it up in the comments, but do yourself a favor and go back and look and Google this. They do this all the time. We're going to do all these huge tax breaks and it's going to be beautiful. And I'm going to bring in tariff money and you're never going to know and yada, yada, yada. Oh, farmers are hurting? Well, we'll bail them out. Well, how about not fucking them in the beginning to begin with? How about not going to a war with a country that has, and I know the right they love to parrot what Trump says. They've been sponsoring state terrorism. They've been at war with us for 47 years. Okay, maybe they have, maybe they haven't, but they've never invaded us. They've never bombed our cities, and they weren't doing the JCPOA. It looks like if Trump, whatever deal Trump gets, is actually not going to be as beneficial to the U.S. peace and security as the JCPOA was, because a black man I'm going to call it a black man put it in. You automatically, Barack Obama insulted him, 15, 20 years ago. So anything Obama touches is crap. Just like
I think Brock's been insulting him again recently too.
Just like he said NAFTA was so horrible and then did the USMCA, which was essentially NAFTA. And then what was it, like 6 months ago, said, what idiot did this USMCA? Anybody who did that person should be ashamed of themselves. Like, it was you, dude. Like, you literally did it in your first presidency. Which gets me to another point. So I was reading, bless you. I was reading something, Nicole Wallace's Dateline White House. Yeah, okay. I read something that she wrote, and she's not the only one. I just happened to read this. Somebody's been watching Trump. I mean, obviously people get paid to do this. He's not sleeping. He's posting all night.
On time, yeah.
I know, but it's getting worse.
No, he does sleep. Boy, he's sitting on a camera. Boy, he's sitting at his desk.
Right, but it's getting worse. Like the other night, he posted till 2 a.m. and then started posting again at like 30.
He's rage posting.
So but let's just be very nice to him and say that means he got 2.5 hours sleep. The fucking president of the United States, arguably the most stressful job in the world. He's 79. Let's call him 80 years, almost 80. 80 in June, I think. He's almost 80 years old, and he's posting all night, and it gets weirder and weirder. And I'm sorry, not a doctor. You're not a doctor. We've said this before. It's sundowners. It's obvious. So his father suffered from Alzheimer's. The man can't, but he was, oh God, you probably didn't see this because you were doing stuff today. They had an impromptu thing at the White House where he signed an executive order to bring back the President Fitness Award, like in school, like that. And there were a bunch of kids around him. And he just started going off about all sorts of crazy shit and looked at this little girl who, best guess, 10, 11, 12, maybe, I doubt she was 13. And he's talking about war and how, Iran's got to kiss his ass. And he goes, you're probably too young for this. And he talking to these kids about all this stuff. And it's like, you got grandkids. You don't know how to talk to kids at all. I mean, there's certain things I wouldn't talk about.
I mean, look how
a 10-year-old.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is that we're also starting to see traction on things like election controls beyond just the Voters' Right Act.
Yes.
Which is all leading towards the concept that we brought up months ago, that potentially the midterms could be taken over or hijacked or canceled because of the fact that if Trump actually, let's just say Trump has 2 more years after this, right? It's going to be quiet. He's not going to get to do a lot. If we see the way things are going now, trend is going to be, it's going to take the House and Senate away. He's not going to have power. But he's going to want to stay in that House and use that power. He abandons back out there pushing 2028 for Trump. Which is
good.
He's also pushing that dude over in the UK to be, what's it, fair or something?
Keir Starmer?
Yeah, it's like that. Anyways, when Trump gets out of office, remember that one person said that he has a substantial enough amount of information to arrest Trump on sedition and on throwing the government. There's all the other crimes that they're just, sometimes I think we don't hear a lot. It's because someone's out there going, there's a little bit of that. Someone's got to let us. It'll be a big enough case that something will stick, right? He can't get his freedoms. He effectively killed the ability to be, as president, to not be held accountable type thing. That's
wrong.
gone.
Wrong. You're wrong. I'm sorry. I have no hope that he's ever gonna. I'm sorry. I don't mean to say you're wrong. I disagree.
Okay.
No, I disagree. I have zero hope that he's ever going to be held accountable because the Supreme Court said that a president cannot be prosecuted for official acts that they do as president. Here's my problem with that. I'm not a lawyer, but I could line up any fucking thing he did and say, official act. You're never going to get him.
One thing is you can't on the oath.
Well, the other thing is, let's say he serves out his term. So he's got, 2.5 years, right? So let's say he'll be 82.
Makes it that long.
Well, that's what's going to be my next point. So if he makes it, he'll be like 82 and a half. Mr. Appeal, Mr. Hang things up in court. Do we really believe with his health and everything else that he won't just appeal it till he dies?
Yeah, maybe you're right.
And he was a sitting president. They're not going to put him in jail. They're not going to hold him in a cell. They're going to release him on his own recognizance.
Oh no, I get that, but there's things.
What he'll do, he'll go to Mar-a-Lago. He'll live the high life. People will come and kiss his ring, and he'll fade off into the sunset. I'm sorry.
I'm hearing more and more of the
right. I know, but this Supreme Court has screwed the American people over for the next 30 years, and it's because they have given him complete immunity. They've gutted. Roe v. Wade. They gutted good God.
There's a lot to rebuild.
Here's the thing that bothers me. Okay, so about the Supreme Court, the arguably the most conservative justice in our lifetime was Antonin Scalia. And I disagreed with Antonin Scalia a lot, but one of the things that he held sacred, and there's writings, there's discussions he did. It's not me making this up. He said it hundreds of times in different ways. Was basically, and I'm going to paraphrase it in my language. You don't fuck with precedent. Basically, if something has been accepted, unless it's found to be egregious, for example, Brown versus the Board of Education. Anybody, maybe not then, anybody with a half a brain looks at it and goes, segregation was horrible. It was left over from Jim Crow. It was fucking horrible. So yes, that precedent needed to be changed. But you don't mess with precedent. So women had the right to abortion for 50 years. And the Supreme Court's like, nah, we don't like it. The Voting Rights Act, 1965, I heard an African-American gentleman the other day on, I think it was CNN, commenting that America became America for the first time, really, 1965, when the Voting Rights Act actually gave everybody in the United States equality when it came to voting, which is extremely important. which they're now trying to take away from women and everybody else. So this Supreme Court consistently has done everything they could do to undermine democracy. And by saying, and they're going to rue the day, I mean this, by saying the president cannot be prosecuted for things that they do as official act. There's going to be a Democratic president at some point who does some jacked up shit and goes, hey, you gave me immunity. And the right's going to lose their mind. The right's going to lose their mind and everything else. And they're going to be like, hey, you remember when the Supreme Court gave the president this wide ranging of power? There you go. This Supreme Court right now, more than Trump, because Trump is temporary. And here's my thing. I heard people, hey, you ban it. He's going to run in 28. Go right the fuck ahead. If we had the presidential election right now, almost any Democrat with a heartbeat and a half a brain could beat Donald Trump hands down right now. Do we think he's going to be any more popular in 28? Run him. Go ahead. I know it's against the Constitution and blah, blah, but I'm saying they keep saying this as if it's a foregone conclusion. They're only saying this to make Trump happy, as it's a foregone conclusion that he's going to get reelected. His fucking poll numbers are in the 30s right now, the lowest of any sitting president since they've started taking those numbers.
Right.
And there's nothing he's going to do. He's not going to wake up tomorrow and suddenly start doing great things for the American people so that he turns that around. And like,
but if he does, I would definitely question his sanity.
Like you said, if the Democrats take back the House, I don't think he'll stick around. I don't think, because they will, even if they don't try to impeach him, they will drive him crazy by hauling everybody in front of the, and here's the other thing. I think they could haul Trump in under oath since they took Clinton in.
Well, I think that's the precedent that was set there, right?
They set that precedent. So I think they could make the president come in. Little things like you talked about. This is the most egregious thing. Something, I was reading a story and this tweaked me. So I did some research yesterday. Of the 1,600 J6 people who Trump pardoned, 132 of them are now back in jail. From everything from trafficking weapons to threatening to police, and a disturbingly large number of them, child pornography, child molestation, and rape. A disturbing number of them. And some, believe it or not, Jim, he's pardoned twice now. After they got out, they did something stupid and he pardoned them again. And the problem is the president, if you read the Constitution, president, there's no limits on the presidential pardon power.
When you're the president and you have done some of those things you just quoted, and you know that, I imagine that you're spending a lot of effort trying to keep people quiet so that they don't talk about the things you did.
Right. But what I'm saying is he can't be prosecuted for that because the Constitution is clear that that's a unlimited presidential power. So again, if I'm trying to prosecute him, all he's got to do is say official act.
Maybe the best thing that comes out of this is we become a more introspective country for a little bit. Look at our rules, our laws, and find a way to sort of stop how this happened. I look back and say, what could we change? What would we do to ensure that these kind of things can't happen again? Much like the German people did after Hitler, right? A lot of effort went into making sure someone couldn't rise to power like that. A lot of it was American driven. I think we've got so much focus on everybody else not being able to have that happen.
I would love, and I think everybody listening to this will agree with me. I don't care what side of the fence you're on. Because here's the thing. If you're a true Trumpy, you are loving the fact that he is just doing whatever the hell he wants to do. Because as long as he can frame it as an official act, he's covered. You're the same. If you're those people, if you're listening right now and you're a Trumpy, fine. I don't understand why, but you're a Trumpy, be that. I also know you are going to be the people screaming the loudest if we have a Democratic president who starts doing things that you don't like. You are going to be screaming your tail off, and we're all going to be going, hey, your fucking conservative Supreme Court gave this person thing. I think everybody listening would agree if we could get a candidate, right or left at this point, and I mean this, I don't care, who ran on nothing but, I'm going to pressure Congress on filling all the holes that have been filled for 250 years by people with class and sense of duty that Donald Trump has run roughshod through. Because if Donald Trump has done nothing else for this country, he's shown us where the loopholes are.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. So maybe we come out of this, if you want to look for the silver lining, right? Which I always want to find that silver lining somewhere. The silver lining is we learned an awful lot about how precious and how really fragile our own democracy is. We learned about how quickly things change, how fast you can go from just a rumble and something where you're going, no way, that can't happen here, to it happened and now it's getting worse. And I by no means think that come the end of midterms And come the end of 2 years after that, the things are going to be getting dramatically better. I think there's a bit of this as a course we will be riding for a while. I think times are going to get a little tougher at some point just because of what's going on. To course correct what we've done is going to take effort.
Here's what I think's going to yeah, you're right. I have that feeling, but I also have another feeling. Just knowing how human beings are and how petty and greedy they can be, especially if you're a politician. You didn't get there by being, not some of that. Let's just say that the Democrats take back the House. And I don't mean by 2 votes. I mean by something comfortable, 10, 20 votes. And I don't know if that's in the cards. I don't count elections like that until they get closer. But let's just say they have a comfortable majority. Not like the Republicans are playing with like 2 or 3 for the last 6 months and they're frustrated.
Yeah.
Meaning that if all the Democrats stuck together, shit's going through the House. And let's worry about, it's going to get passed in the House.
Right.
And let's say the Senate's 50-50. I hope not, but let's say the Senate's 50-50. Or 51-49 Democrats, or whatever. Let's say it's really close. If the Republicans get shellacked in the midterms, as even Republicans are starting to think. In fact, it's interesting what you said about the Voting Rights Act and all that. The Save America Act. The really restricting people to have IDs because evidently. Todd Blanche thinks you have to show an ID when you go in a restaurant. I don't know if you caught that, but he literally said you have to show an ID when you go in a restaurant. And Trump, you have to show an ID at the grocery store. Wow. But that's dead on arrival. Nobody thinks that's actually going to pass. A lot of Republicans are already quietly using that to explain why they get their ass kicked in November. To say, well, if we'd had that, then all these illegals wouldn't have voted.
They wouldn't have shot at me.
Which again, it's a solution in search of a problem. Like even the what is it? The guys who did Project 2025. What's that group called? Heritage Foundation. I think it was them who did a study, and I think there were like 260 cases of voter fraud in federal elections in the last 20 years. Yeah, it's like 10 people voted a year or whatever that weren't supposed to. And if we believe that,
Frederick, over and over again, how these dead people are voting. I'm like, if this was really happening,
Right. But so what I think could happen, and I hope if the Democrats take over the House and or the Senate, they have balls enough to do this. I think in the interest of preserving this country, you start writing bills and passing laws or passing bills in the House to close those gaps, to rein in presidential power, and then hand it to the Senate, even if the Republicans are in charge, and say, what do you think? And if I'm a Republican,
I watched it, has a great way of showing how that power has moved around, starting with Reagan, then to
right.
And to be honest with you, folks, this is where I love it. Every one of our former presidents back to Reagan has consolidated the U.S. president's power, taken away from places and brought it to themselves, whether they were Democrat or Republican.
Right, but they were constrained from doing what Trump did out of deep.
Okay, yeah, no, that's not that. But I'm just saying.
You're right. But I'm saying
sure that you hear. We know both of you.
Right. But I'm saying that the perfect storm of it is Trump is a petulant child, and for whatever reason, and the founding fathers never expected this. The Republican in the House and the Senate are like, we're not here. We're not a check. Do whatever the hell you want. Like little things like we hit the 60-day mark on the around more. And Trump's like, well, we're in a ceasefire now, so the 60 days resets. For those of you who don't know, the president has 60 days before they have to take it to Congress. And he's like, reset. But we're still doing a naval operation, but it's not the same thing. And Republicans are sitting on their hands going, well, if that's how it is. And we had a chance, fucking John Fetterman, we had a chance, was it 2 weeks ago, to stop this nonsense. And Fetterman has lost his damn mind and has gone, no, I mean, he has. I mean, he was an outsider, but he's gone completely, he's a Trumpy now. He might as well be. And he's being primaried. He'll be lucky to keep his seat. But here's this thing. If Joe Biden or Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or insert Democratic president here, fuck it. George W. Bush was smart enough to go to Congress and lay out a plan and strategy. It was all bullshit, but he still did it. It was performative, but he still did it. And Congress went, yes, go to war because we were attacked on our own soil. Trump won't even do that. And the Republicans will not hold him accountable. And I don't know if you saw this. This boils my blood. You and I talked about this last week. The ballroom was going to be
ballroom.
Oh no, it was going to be paid for by donors. And then Lindsey Graham, after the assassination attempt, and for those of you listening, I'm doing the air quotes because even the right wing folks are saying that was bullshit. After that, it's ballroom, 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 ballroom. And Lindsey Graham is saying, oh well, we should allocate $400 million for the ballroom, and then let Trump use the funny money he found for places stuff. Reconciliation bill is being pushed through right now for TSA and all of that. And the Republicans slipped in a little line item for $1 billion for the ballroom. $1 billion. And they're going to push it through reconciliation so it doesn't need 60 votes. It'll happen. So now you and I are hard-earned tax dollars. Donald Trump's going to get $1 billion to build that stupid fucking thing. He has no right to build.
Not all for the ballroom, right? We know there's some very serious military building. Because that's
okay, right? Above and below. But the bottom line was
serious bunker being built, and I'm fine with those kind of things. You know, I think that's just national interest. So, this whole ballroom thing, I feel like we lost that one because we let him tear the East Wing down to begin with. The fact that he could do that without anybody really saying stop, right?
Well, that's the problem I have. You know, you knock down the East Wing without any, without Congress's approval, and Congress was like, "What? East Wing? What?" And then it's like,
mentioned the fact that his name is on some things in Washington, D.C. now. His image is flying everywhere. Then it feels like stepping in.
I know. It's again, the founding fathers never envisioned a president who didn't give a fuck about any convention or any tradition or anything like that. Trump just does whatever the hell he wants. And they also could never have envisioned a party, the same party being in charge of the Congress going, do you, big boy?
But that's interesting because then Trump says they couldn't have envisioned how that their constitution would even be functional. That's why we need to rewrite it because they didn't have the internet. They didn't have, like, wow, that's not a reason to change your constitution because you didn't have the internet.
Right. Well, and then the founding fathers could have never imagined somebody like Trump who wants to be an authoritarian. Well, they did. And that's why they put Congress.
Oh, good George.
Well, that's why they put Congress in as a check. They couldn't imagine Congress just completely ceding all power. And then there's another check, which is the Supreme Court, which does more or less whatever the fuck Trump wants to do.
But historically, Sally, but yes, now it does. There was a time when you could count on the Balancing Act to keep things.
And I'm going to say this as a good lifelong progressive. I don't ever want to see a situation where there's a Democratic president, a Democratic Congress, and a left-leaning Supreme Court that let a Democratic president roughshod over the fucking Congress.
The reason we have checks and balances
is because it's Donald Trump. I'm saying it because it's a symptom of a much bigger.
We want checks and balances. That's what this country needs, right? This country likes its checks and balances because that stops us from leaning too far right, too far left, or doing something so stupid that it affects us all. That's the reality of it. So, Chuck, I wanted to say this week, Herr Trump, the honorable dictator, the glorious leader, spent a lot more time going to the doctors.
I saw this.
There's been a couple emergency helicopter flights out there, and a quote unquote dentist. And those are all scheduled and not and
wait a minute. He flew to Mar-a-Lago to the dentist when the White House has a surgeon. I mean, all the best. I mean, they have everything right there. Or he could have gone to Walter Reed. Oh, he went home.
Well, how many isn't he home every weekend in Mar-a-Lago or something like that? I mean, we used to get mad when Obama and Clinton and I played so much golf, and I'm like, is anybody ever going to beat this guy's record? He's playing golf all the time, even if it's just in his pants with his hands,
So
I there's been all these pictures of his health, the growing appendages around his waist of things they're putting him in for whatever level of he's apparently had. It has now come out that he does have health issues, right? Really? Imagine that. I mean, but they still won't talk about his hands. And you mentioned last week, Melania fluffing that hand right off of him. Even King Charles looking a little scared to touch him. So whatever the man has, a priest friend of mine would say that is the devil coming through. Whatever demon is in him is coming out and the skin's starting to boil, right? So he's that kind of friend, right?
So you probably didn't see this today because you were busy. When he was meeting when they had the kids at the White House and they were doing the thing, there's a small, and I don't know if it's always been there. It may be a Trump thing. It may not, but there was a very small putting green on the grounds of the White House, which I have no problem. I mean, it's not a golf course, it's a putting green. And if I'm the president and I need to blow off some steam, go out to hit some balls around, what the fuck? Who cares? I could have one in my backyard. It's not that expensive for like a one, Anyway, if I played golf, I could have one here. The kids were hitting the balls around and doing everything else. Trump, who is notorious for cheating at because he's won multiple club championships at his clubs. Nowhere else, his clubs. And his caddy was caught cheating for him and dropping a ball last year or 2 years ago, whatever the fuck it was. He says he has a 2.8 handicap. Anybody knows anything about golf means you're pushing pro. You really are pushing pro at that point. And he's got that registered on the National Register or whatever. He goes out and was going to show the kids how to do it and missed 3 putts. Didn't make any, missed 3 putts. And I was like, and his ego and his narcissism are such that I guarantee it didn't bother him at all. He's like, fuck it.
And the funny thing is, with kids, you could have laughed it off. You could have done said, well, you try, right? You could have like played into it. Like this could be, there's moments where Trump could have found some endearing times.
You're 79 years old. You could say, I've been sitting all day. I'm not loose. I need to warm up some more. You kids, you kids beat me. You kids beat me, and make the kids feel good. But no, he can't do that. No, I was going to say, I don't know if you saw this, but, with the DOJ is prosecuting this guy who perpetuated, doing the air quotes again, folks, perpetuated this assassination attempt on Trump, which is very odd to me because if he really shot a Secret Service agent, why the fuck is he alive? Any other time, that would be the end of it.
Agent that was shot?
What's that?
Have we ever seen a picture of the agent shot?
Yeah, you mean the fact that you can, the video was released. I've been a gun owner and my dad was a hardcore hunter. I've been around guns my entire life. There's no muzzle flash. He didn't
so have we seen the picture of the injury to the guy who was shot? Yeah.
Well, not to mention the fact that there's no muzzle flash. And if I shoot somebody, even with a vest on, with a shotgun at close range, it's going to knock them on their ass. I don't give a damn how big you are, how strong you are. The concussion is going to knock you on your ass. Dude he just turned as he watched the guy go by. It's complete nonsense. But, Jeanine Pirro, who I'm just going to say her name and move on. She is prosecuting this. And what is going to end up happening is because of the manifesto this guy wrote, or the letter, or whatever you want to call it. And he says, I can no longer serve under a pedophile, rapist, yada, 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 yada. And never mentions Trump. It doesn't take much to see it.
I loved what he wrote.
Right. But Jeanine Pirro is going to have to read that out in court and in a legal setting say he was talking about Donald Trump calling him a rapist and a pedophile. And one is true. Rapist is absolutely true. He was convicted by a jury of his peers. Pedophile, I think so. But
that's coming.
Well, it's interesting because
and I guess I think I think I told you last week. These Lego videos that are coming out of Iran as propaganda.
They're genius. They're
so well done. And they are so good at taking the American people and kind of saying, hey, this isn't our beef with you. It's a beef with you.
Right.
And what that tells me is they're trying to let us know we're not harming you, right?
Right.
Because we all know they tried to kill his ass once, right? They tried to take him out. But what I love is they keep talking about what's coming and they talk about what they can share. They're letting stuff out. They're sharing things.
Oh, I know. Well, and the thing is, it's like you and I've talked about. I went on a tirade last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, about this weird ass obsession in this country with if you say anything bad about Israel, you're anti-Semitic. And it's just like you and I said, I have absolutely nothing against Israeli people. I love everybody. I truly do. Their government. It's Benjamin Netanyahu and their government, just like I love the American people. Want to shake some of them, like I said, for still being in the cult, but I hate our current administration. And you can do those two things, but they're blurring that line. And I agree with you 100%. Iran's like, we don't have any beef with Jim or Chuck or anybody just going about their lives. Our beef was with the asshole who pulled the trigger to bomb our cities for no fucking reason. And they have every right to that. But I want to talk about something else because I want to make sure we don't go too long. We've been going a little long lately. So you and I talked, it was last week or the week, I think it was Malcolm was here about, JD Vance being the heir apparent of Trump, or, and then there's the not so dark horse of Rubio. There is a rumble, and it's not crazy. I mean, well, maybe crazy, but it's not just crazy people saying it, but there's a rumble that quietly building up. That's why he broke with Israel. That's why he's broken with Trump and MAGA and all that kind of stuff. And I was going to say I have mixed feelings. I don't have mixed feelings. I'm tired of, I think we learned with Trump that snake oil salesmen don't make good leaders. And, go ahead, you get mad at me about that. But I mean, Tucker Carlson pushed the Iraqi war, pushed it. And then, I mean, like every fucking night on Fox News, and then came back and was like, I was against it. It's like, no, you weren't, dude. You pushed it. You got fired from Fox, and you almost single-handedly cost Fox News Corporation $757 million. And now you're on whatever the fuck he's on doing this thing.
In a recent interview he did with,
other than the fact that he has bitched about politics like you and I are for the last 30 years, what qualifications does he have? He's never served in public service.
I agree. In the last episode he interviewed with, I think, Joe Rogan or somebody, one of the things that actually made me open my eyes and listen to him was he said, listen, we didn't know everything we were voting for. We knew some of it. Now, okay, that's right. But then he said, no matter what it comes down to, my hands have blood on it. I voted this guy into office. I supported him becoming president. Only I have to own that. I thought, people who sin, right? People who go down the dark path, do have moments where light comes out and they get calm, right? I'm not saying that's him.
Go ahead.
But I'd like to think that because listen, Margaret Taylor Greene is, oh my God, the things she was saying about how she believed in the cult of Trump and all this stuff. And then she suddenly realized things weren't happening and now her opinion changed. It's not the first case, right? I mean, so as MAGA is dissolving, as the Trump culture is fed up, something bites your eyes, right? Something tells you there's truth out there. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. So that's just my belief that these good people may actually have seen their error, because I want to believe people can.
No. Okay. So you are 100% correct. The last two things you just said, yes, I believe people can see their error, and I believe people can be, for lack of a better term, repentant, whatever you want to call it. If during the Dominion case against Fox, the $757 million judgment, if text messages had not come out that were, legally obtained of Tucker Carlson saying, I fucking hate Trump. I can't wait till he's gone. I'm sick of hearing him. That's when he was on Fox News still spewing that stuff. No.
Yeah.
Just like, so here's the thing. Okay, this is going to sound really weird. We used to make a joke. I don't remember who said it first, but one of my friends said it. I don't believe Marjorie Taylor Greene has enough mental capacity to motor the gnat. She doesn't have enough brain power to motor the gnat around the inside of a Cheerio. Okay, I don't. And I believe, as my father would say, she just smells her own pits. So she was all in, and as soon as he turned on her, she was all out. I think she's, no, I'm not being mean.
I think that's an advantage.
Hold on.
A lot of people like that.
No, I agree, but I'm making a point here. Give me just a second here. I'm fleshing it out. I believe she's all reaction. I believe that's all she is. She was riding Trump train. I believe she believed in a lot the Jewish space lasers and a lot of crazy shit he was saying. And the minute he turned on her, she went all against. I believe she's either or.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson's a very, very smart man. He's calculating, and he pushed Trump and pushed Trump and pushed Trump and pushed Trump until he realized that Trump's going down. And then he's like, well, we didn't know we were voting for this, and we were lied to. And no, you weren't. You knew exactly who he was, and I believe, my opinion, all he is doing is covering his ass in case
isn't that what everybody
he wants to stay in media personality, or in case he wants to run for office. I think he's the most disingenuous human being to breathe air.
And we've talked about a week or two ago. There's nobody in newscasting or politics or reporting that really is of the ilk of what it used to be like to be a car buyer.
There are no journalists anymore.
No, so they're all out for power. They're all out for rhetoric. So,
well,
all right. So,
and please understand this, Jim. I mean this. I know I just went harsh on Tucker Carlson. No, I mean this from the bottom of my heart.
I don't like Tucker. I just felt like the first time I saw something.
Brother, I'm like you. I believe in second chance. I've worked with really tough kids for 20 years. I am all about second, third, fifth, 12th chances, whatever it takes to get somebody to that moment where the light bulb goes off and they go, oh, I need to change my ways. I'm all about that. I am infinite. Truly, I mean, because of what I did for so many years, I have infinite patience, thick skin. If I truly thought that Tucker Carlson was in earnest, I'd say, brother, come on in. The water's fine. Be part of the solution, not the problem. I just don't believe in his case that he has a genuine, reasonable. I don't believe he has a genuine bone in his body. I believe he's going to say and do whatever he has to do to continue to be in the public eye. And he's not the only one. I'm not singling him out. You and I just were talking about him because there's rumblings he might run in 28. And I think that's why he's distancing himself from Trump. And I think and MAGA and all of that, because whoever runs in 28, if you've got the stench of MAGA on you, I don't think you have a chance in hell.
All right. So my baggy award this week. The politicians of Dallas. I'm going to broadly paint that brushstroke. And I'm doing it over our Dallas City Hall. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Dallas, we're talking about Dallas City Hall. We have a very brutalist designed City Hall. Is an odd shape that towers out over a plaza on an angle. It looks like a sand crawler out of Star Wars, okay, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
It's not a bad looking building.
I was going to say, is it at least cool looking?
It's cool. It's a brutalist building.
It's modern.
I mean, the things it doesn't have is that soft feeling, right? It's got a huge cement plaza that just looks like you're walking in cement baking lands. A giant fountain which leaks through to the basement. I'll tell you more about that in a second. And then a whole bunch of grass where the homeless people just defecate. Anyhow, over the course of time, the building has come down something like $50 billion down, $500 million in damages, right? The cost to repair the building is starting to question whether they should tear it down. So, for instance, being on a formal commission in the city of Dallas, as I talked about, and potentially another one soon, if you went into the garage, you would constantly see these drips of water coming down. I mean, I'm talking about little drips. I'm talking about like streams, right? With sand and dirt around where that falls. Does anybody remember what happened in Florida to a certain building where that was happening? Does anybody ever, Bueller? The building collapses, right? So I can tell you, a lot of times I went in there thinking, this could be the day I don't get out. My car's in here, this thing goes down. But they want to tear it down. And it's not because they want to enter City Hall. It's because there's an opportunity to bring a Singapore-style gambling feature to Dallas. And that is the prime property that people bring in. Now, that's been held back so much. It's never been talked about. We finally got somebody wise enough to say something on TikTok. And a lot of us who are sort of like, okay, if you want to move, Neiman Marcus moved out, all these other places moved out. You move into an existing office, you take it over. We're not building you something new. It's sort of sad. Dallas has no love for things past. We will tear down a very long-standing, beautiful piece of something to put up a piece of shit.
That's insane.
Guys, people, the politics and the politicians of Dallas, those who wish to take the city hall down, that building is not, it's not friendly, it's not nice, it's not amazing inside, but it is a style. And it could be fixed. And it could certainly use the power washer. But that's my lost bag of the week. So it's the Dallas politicians who think they're going to pull it over on us when all they're really trying to do is sweetheart a deal to buy pockets their money for them into this casino thing like Singapore.
Well, because I'm a simple guy. I love old looking stuff, but sometimes really cool, well done modern building is various
brutalist. I mean, it's not going to sit there and go, "Ooh, I love it. I want to touch it." It's brutalist.
I mean, but it can be aesthetically pleasing. It can be,
It's not, and it's not. Yeah. So, all right.
Here's your happy ending. Jim, Forever Fresh, a group of female DJs all over the age of 60 have been turning up the volume at a pop festival in Cologne, Germany, started looking for ways to involve more demographic. The organizers soon sent out a query. Senior women who were interested would learn all the intricacies of being a DJ, mastering mixes, transitions, volumes, fade, and all the buttons and sliders for the audio equipment. Then they would hit the stage. One of the mix masters is DJ Miss Crazy Irma, who is the group's oldest member at 90 years old. She travels through her daily life with a walker, but once she gets on stage, she's fully upright, moving and grooving with her hands in the air. I don't do things halfway, Irma said. The Forever Fresh DJ Collective was finalized in April of 2025 and now performed 7 different gigs, including this year's festival in Cologne. It's exciting because we thought our families and friends would come, said Ushi Ophir. I apologize, ma'am, if I messed your name up. The group's youngest member at 64, but the younger people were amazing. Really, really great. Of the selections played on stage, there was EDM. That's electronic dance music for you old folks. From David Guetta, pop from Pink and Miley Cyrus, and of course, Jim, Dancing Queen from ABBA. The eclectic mix of music in the air and women on the stage seemed to be a massive hit with everyone in attendance. To be honest, it was fantastic, one partygoer told RTL. I didn't really expect it to be so captivating. The girls on stage had such good energy, another spectator added. It swept us all away. I'm sweating.
What it is, I've heard about this. I've actually listened to a couple sets from those events. I really love when I see folks who are older taking an interest in DJing, because the young kids, the youngins out there, think a computer and a a little wave and stuff and colors, and they can match it all, right? I mean, effectively, you could just turn a computer on and let it match a set.
Oh, yeah.
Good old mixers, when they know what they're doing, and I love somebody who can still mix bonds. That just makes me happy, because there is an art to listening, an art to finding a way to mash, and an art to bringing them together that is being lost.
Absolutely.
You could they didn't have sine waves to look at. They literally looked at the waves on that record, and they hear it, and they're matching the other one. I mean,
or the UV meter. Yeah. Because I'm an old enough fart that I was a DJ in college, way back in the dark days of the 1980s, kids. And yeah, we had turntables, and I think we had one tape deck. We had the old, what are they called? They're 8-track tapes, but they're like card decks. They're called card decks.
oh yeah,
You had 8-track tapes with like commercials and stuff on them. You push the button, and yeah, I did all that stuff back in the dark ages of the 80s. But yeah, nowadays you're right. Everything computerized. Worked with a guy.
they're not even DJs aren't even taking CD players anymore. They're just dumping it all up on the computer and mastering it from there.
Well, that's what I mean. I worked with a guy recently who was a DJ for years locally here in Virginia on one of the radio stations. Excuse me. And he said the station manager or the program director programs your entire set. It's all on computer, the commercials and everything. Basically, you're just, I don't know, you're directing, for lack of a better term, but it's all.
Teaching it.
Because I remember back in the old days, whenever you'd get an album, and I'm going to be done here in 2 minutes, I promise. You get an old album, you would go through each hit, not every track, but you'd go through each hit, and you would write, like if we had 45s, you would write how much intro was on before the singing.
Right.
So you would have to time it. If there was like 22 seconds, you'd be like, oh, and that back and forth, and thank you very much. Here's Jim Hauck and the blah, blah, blah. And then right at that 21 second, you'd stop, and then the vocals would start. Yeah, you had to time it and get good at it.
Still love watching my buddy Andy Almighty, true Andy Almighty, the guy who did most Britpop that everyone ever hears records, big guy. I mean, he used to come to DJ parties for me. He put 4 CDJs up there. And I would love the mastery of a person who could make each song talk to each other. This one would say, how did you get here? And this one would say, I took a bus. He'd have conversations going on. Most people don't catch that shit.
Mm-mm.
But if you got someone like that mixing your music, you'd listen. And I just would laugh at the stories he would tell with the songs. But then you'd have somebody show up with their Mac laptop and we think my computer crashed. Okay, but how are you going to play your set today? I don't know.
Well, it's like if you go back and look at original hip hop, Jam Master Jay and or
Wiki.
Jam Master Jay and all those guys, they were doing all that. What was the guy's name who did it for the Beastie Boys? It'll come to me in a minute. But they would actually, yes, they would have tapes, like DAT tapes. For those of you youngsters, that's digital audio tape. But they would have DAT tapes that have like the background music, but then they'd be spinning records and doing the shift and everything else for all the little intricacies and all that.
You get a solid beat going because you didn't have a drum machine. You just got a beat.
Also, I mean, you just put it on a drum machine or you put it on a DAT and that would run, and then you would do the augmented stuff with the tables and everything. Anyway, I'm sorry. Big diaper.
Oh, no, that's great. I love it. The old days, right? Like,
I just love the fact that the youngest woman was 60. And DJ, what was it? DJ Crazy.
There's hope for us, Chuck. There's hope.
What was it? Wait. What was her name? DJ Miss Crazy Irma, 90 years old. I can just see her get up on her walker and then just crush it. I just.
Crazy Irma, if you hear this, you reach out. We'll put you on an episode and talk to you because you want to
hear what it's like. Hell yes. Because here's the thing. I know human beings can be catty and petty and so on and so forth. I know if I was in my late teens or early 20s and I'm in a rave or whatever you want to call it, and a 90-year-old lady comes up and starts crushing it and stuff like next to me, he's like, I can't believe that old lady's up there. I'd be the first one to do, dude, fuck you.
We had a guy he had to be in his 70s. He could always show up at every rave. He was a hippie.
What's I'm saying?
He had his rainbow flag or rainbow hit still, and he would spin like Stevie Nicks, and he would have a good time. And I knew he was high as a kite.
Well, I can see somebody going, man, that great grandma is crushing it. Shut the fuck up. This is killer.
I used to say I didn't want to be that person on the dance floor, but damn it, we have rights.
There's hope for you, Jim. There's hope.
All right, everybody, thank you for joining us today. If you can, please hit that like and subscribe button, let your friends know, and please mark notifications so you see our episodes every time they come out. And gosh, we'd love if you commented and shared your thoughts on what we're saying, because, we're talking in a vacuum for ourselves, thinking we're doing a great job. But if you think we don't, then tell us. If you think we are, tell us that too. We'd love to hear more. We'd love to have folks on the show who think they have an addition to that rapport we have. But let me tell you, this is not an easy thing to get into. You got to be fast. You got to be ready.
Right.
You don't have a lot of rehearsal time for you.
Right.
But it's been Life in the Baggage Claim, where we talk about life stories and things otherwise affecting us. I'm Jim Hauck. I own JP Hauck Adventures, a travel company. And right now, book your travel because it's going to get more expensive as oil will get pricey. Buy it now while it's cheap. I'll get you anything you want. Just reach out.
Chuck Longerbeam, Walkabout Travel, same company. We both work with cruise planners, but I can do the same thing. Reach out, be happy to help. And folks, like Jim said, please like and subscribe. Tell your friends, but more importantly, tell your enemies. They need to hear what we're talking about.
Be kind. Make America kind again. America love again. Makamala.
Good week, folks.